Hey everyone, it's Steve here from CG Geek. I'm a 3D artist. I love to create 3D worlds, unique environments, and reimagine famous nature scenes. And I have a very serious problem. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 5, maybe 10 years, you would know that AI is getting scarily good at creating these sort of scenes in just a few seconds with only a few prompts. Does this mean that there's no longer any point for me to spend weeks creating these 3D scenes? That's the question that all of us 3D artists have been needing to address. And if you want to avoid the drama, well, stay away from Twitter/X because there's endless heated debates about AI going on over there. So I decided, instead of debating the fact, let's just show it in action. Now, first off, I hope everyone understands my stance on AI. Not really a fan. This is a pure 3D visual effects channel that will never be using AI slop. I legit get sponsor offers every single day for AI related products that I'm always turning down. So that's why for this video, I'll be facing off against AI in a visual effects artist versus computer competition. But with a twist. AI is only able to create what's already been created, right? It references everything that's available to it, sometimes stealing it, and processes that information to create something similar. But with that said, I think most people will agree that honestly, humans almost do exactly the same thing. Now I say almost because while a lot of people will say it's impossible to have an original idea in this day and age, I would say that's true, but for 99% of the time, humans are always inspired by other humans and their art. I believe there's a tiny bit of uniqueness in every one of us that continues to expand our creativeness. For example, somewhat recently, movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, love it or hate it, it broke the mold a little bit from what everyone was used to seeing at the movies. Another example, the art style in new films like Into the Spider-Verse. These technologies and rendering styles that hadn't been used before. And AI couldn't create these kind of things, that is until humans did it first. So, on with our challenge now, but with that in mind, I'll be sketching something straight out of my brain. I know, scary, right? And literally I'm an elephant on skates when it comes to drawing. But this drawing will be used for direct concept art for me to follow in my 3D creation process with Blender, where I'll go head-to-head versus AI and feed this drawing into the algorithm as a prompt to see how AI does, also turning my drawing into a full-on scene. So yes, AI might kick my butt, but for the time being, it can't think exactly like a human. So let's see how this 3D art showdown goes. Is this taking my job away? For drawing this scene, I turned to my iPad. Now, generally, I'm not a fan of drawing on tablets and the iPad because they're always glass surfaces, and they don't give the same resistance or feel to the pen like you get when you're drawing on paper. This is where things start to get cool, with this video sponsor, Paperlike. Paperlike is not just a screen protector. In fact, it's much more than that. While it fully protects your expensive iPad display, it also completely fixes the issue of feeling like you're drawing on glass, because before Paperlike, you probably were. And installation is super easy. They have an in-depth, easy to follow video guide that plays step-by-step on the iPad as you install the protector. Their one-of-a-kind Paperlike install tool makes it super easy to align everything up perfectly on your display, and it doubles as a safe way to remove any bubbles during the installation process. Everything went super smooth for me, and their install kit makes it nearly impossible to get any dust or dirt below the screen protector. And the Paperlike protector actually gives the iPad a nice, slightly matte finish gloss, which I actually liked quite a bit. I'll admit I was just a little bit skeptical trying this out, wondering if it might be sort of gimmicky. But guys, let me tell you, this makes the surface of your iPad literally 10 times better for drawing. It really just holds up to its name and makes the screen feel like the texture of drawing on paper. If you've ever tried digital drawing and just didn't like the feel of the display, you'll definitely want to give Paperlike a try, and you can check them out with the first link in the video description. So, feeling more comfortable drawing now, I did some practice sketching and painting exercises on the iPad before starting on this piece of concept art. And for that, here's what I came up with. I knew I wanted it to be a nature environment related and maybe a giant whale. So that last part might be because I just finished watching One Piece and kind of just wanted to create a giant whale. But I thought it would be fun to do something fantastical by putting some giant sea creatures normally found underwater in the sky. A fun concept art, not something entirely original, because is that even possible anymore? Well, maybe 1% of the time. But this was unique for me, something I've never done before, and something I thought would look cool in 3D and fun to create. So here we are firing up Blender 5.1, finna about to do just that. In Blender, I started by adding the concept art that I drew as my background image to the camera. I knew I needed some canyon mountains for the scene, along with some distant mountains in the horizon fading into the fog to get the overall scale of the scene here. And then did some blocking out on this scene with some basic cube shapes to kind of get the perspective and the camera view set up properly. Once I had things roughly blocked out, I started using Blender's Ant Landscape Generator to generate some of these distant mountains. Really easy to mess around with a few of the settings in this add-on to kind of get the exact right shape that you needed, and then it was just a bit of positioning to get them right lined up with with my drawing. And then I just duplicated them, layered them at different scales and rotations to get these sort of rolly mountains getting larger and larger as they get further away. Once I had those meshes, I also played around using the Ant Landscaper for some canyon mountains, which you can get some really cool looking results. But I decided I need something a little bit higher res for real close to the camera here. So I turned to a technique that I've used multiple times on the channel, and that is drone photogrammetry, where you'd use a drone to scan rock faces, mountains, and canyons in this example. It's actually pretty easy to do. I have a video on how you can do it for free. For the canyon that I landed on for this scene, I got off of Sketchfab. Just a really cool little stretch of 3D photogrammetry. I was able to take that mesh then into Blender, start modifying it, breaking it up into pieces, rotating it around, scaling it to kind of fit the canyon shapes that I have drawn out here. Matching it right up to some of the blocking that I did, just putting in the chunks and the little hedges where I need it. This is kind of a fun way to 3D model where you're dealing with a detailed mesh that you're just kind of duplicating and rotating and blending together with other meshes. I wanted this to kind of direct your eye towards the center of the scene where we're gonna have a character and our main whale. Next stage was adding a little bit of detail to this photogrammetry and also giving it a sense of scale by adding some trees to it. These pine trees you might have seen on a previous video where I did a Bob Ross scene. It's a little throwback there, but to distribute these trees in a very realistic sort of fashion on our landscape here, I set up a very simple geometry node setup that allowed me to use curves and brush strokes to be able to paint onto this mesh wherever I thought trees would naturally be growing. Most people think geometry nodes and think, scary, myself included for the most part, but this is actually super simple and I highly recommend a lot of you guys probably use it for some of your nature scenes because it saves so much time and it gives you all the control still. All you do is add in a basic curve to your scene, then splitting your window for geometry nodes, you add in the resample node and the instances on points node. From here, you just need some geometry now to put on that curve. So I have a group of the few different varieties of this pine tree made. I can just drag and drop that group right into my geometry node window. Make sure it's set to original, separate children, and reset children. Then just connect the instances up to the instances on points node. Then to add a little bit of that nature variation to it, you can add in a random value node, connect it to the scale and give it a min-max value of 0.3 to 1. These values will depend on the scale of your meshes, and I highly recommend that you go Control A and apply the scale on your trees in this example. Then for the rotation, duplicate that random value node and then add in a combined XYZ node. Connecting the random value to the Z axis, you can now also randomize the rotation of the spin on your trees. Then in edit mode on your curve, just choose the draw tool and choose surface. So any way that you draw, it will be attached to the mesh surface that you're drawing on. And this added a lot of scale and more realism to our geometry here. Then before I went any further, I kind of needed to 3D model a whale. So that's what I did. I got some reference art on the type of whale that I was gonna go for, and then I just went for it. First time modeling a fish was actually pretty fun, and I was able to go really low poly on my base mesh, just doing simple geometry, extruding, scaling, and pulling vertices around. The only places I had to get a little bit more detail was around the eye socket here, and a bit around the mouth to make sure I got the shape the way I was looking for it. Added some simple fins to the whale and a tail, and called it pretty much good. From there, I just needed some detail and texture maps. The base mesh was great, and now I just needed more detail on the whale, so I went into sculpting and just went to town, adding all kinds of rolls of fish fat, I guess, under the neck, because these kind of ridges are very common on these whales. Using the crease tool to add a bunch of these creases, and then adding some like warts, just to give it some more age, make it seem like an older, more ancient sort of creature. Some wrinkles around the eyes as well. Just a lot of detail, even though I was gonna be burying the whale in a bunch of clouds pretty soon. After that was looking pretty good, I went ahead and put a simple rig on the whale so I could position it. I was also going to be adding another whale in the background, so I want to have some control over how to pose these creatures. Rigging was super simple, just need enough bones along the length of the whale so I could kind of bend it and distort it in the way I had it drawn here. And that was pretty it for the geometry of the scene. I had my little 3D modeled guy here standing in as reference. He didn't exactly look realistic, but for now, I'm just going to leave this little chunky dude as is. While creating this, I kept thinking about something that I read on Twitter/X a little while back that went something like this. Yes, AI will eventually create art as good or even better than humans, but humans will not care for it, at least aside from the initial curiosity. Because it's not about the art, it's about humans wanting to hear about other humans' stories. Humans don't care how AI feels, they want to know how other humans feel and explore their minds. How many people want to watch AI play versus AI in chess? Think about that for a little bit. No one really does. They might want to see a human beat an AI in chess, just like you might be hoping that I don't lose this art competition terribly to AI. Me too. I hope that too. So I guess the next stage was into texturing. Starting by texturing the whale, I did this all by hand painting it, which was a little bit time consuming. I basically just kept going over and over it with more and more layers, starting with the base color of lighter on the underside of the whale and darker on the top, and then going over with more and more strokes, adding creases to all that geometry, giving it some texture across the top. I'm modifying some of the brushes by adding a clouds noise texture to the brush mask. Little things like this gave it a little bit more interest. And then just some different colors and spots and stuff across the fins. Nothing crazy, and I settled on this looking good enough. Then for the texturing on the mountain landscapes, I'm not gonna lie, I went super cheaty on this. I actually hadn't done this before with the Ant landscape generator, but I saw someone else do it and got really good results. All you really need to do on sort of a stagnant shot like this that's not having a lot of movement is project a mountain texture onto the mountains. And hear me out, it can actually look really good because you already have all the depth. So it's really easy to then add sort of like mist and stuff over it. So for the face of it, all you kind of need is a projected image texture. Instead of going through like I have in the past and creating advanced materials for the different layers of rock and snow and stuff on these mountains, in the end it's just another texture, so why not? And then to see how this was working, I started adding cubes with basic volume materials applied to them. This is my favorite way recently to add volume to my scenes. I used to rely heavily on the mist option in Blender and add in that sort of depth in compositing, but just using a cube with a basic volume on it and then duplicating it over and over for more depth, I found to look really good actually. So I just have a principled volume connected to the volume output at a very low density and some anastrophe, and then I start just duplicating them over and over for different sections of volume. So for like the canyon here that I wanted to make feel distant and large, I started duplicating and adding lots of these cubes to it for different layers of volumetrics. It gives you a lot more control and more realistic results than using the mist overlays in the compositing, which I still did a little bit of. The overall scale of the scene was looking really good now, and we had the texturing all in place. All that was really left was the clouds. Starting with, I wanted my giant, massive whale in the sky to kind of be blowing through the clouds a little bit. I kind of wanted to be interacting with the clouds. So I did this by adding a giant cube as a domain encompassing the whole whale. I added a little bit of 3D animation to our armature, so I had some movement on the whale here. With that in place, I baked a really high-res smoke simulation. Just changing some of the settings of the density and the heat in the smoke so it didn't rise up real fast like a typical smoke cloud would. It was more sort of dispersed like a cloud. Using the dissolve settings to have it sort of fading as the whale kind of displaced these clouds. I just baked it at a really high resolution with some noise for some extra detail. And rendered these clouds out with a pretty simple volume material. But as you can see, that volume material looked pretty cool with some environment lighting set up as an HDR. The material is very basic. It's two volume scatter nodes added together, one with a negative anastrophe level and one with a positive anastrophe level. And this is a little trick that I learned from a fellow Blender YouTuber. It's using the light path node, taking the ray depth and mapping the range to be a maximum of 16, multiplying this to your density. And by doing that, it limits the amount of bounces inside of the smoke and kind of eliminates the ambient occlusion that naturally occurs in a volumetric, because we don't really want that for realistic clouds. The only other setting you had to change to kind of complete this effect is in your render settings light paths. You had to choose it to also have 16 volume bounces as well. And these cloud materials I was going to use a whole lot more here in a second, because I knew I wanted a whole bunch of puffy clouds going into the horizon, kind of encompassing this whale. So what you can do for this is you can use the import VDB option to import volumetrics. If you don't want to have to go through all the computing of generating your own clouds like I did for this base mesh of cloud, this is a pack of clouds created using EmberGen as sort of an example, where you can create more of these clouds with the software if you want. They also give you some free ones to play around with. But just going through and importing these clouds and then just placing them, rotating them, and giving them the same material in the scene, this is a really good way to get sort of those big, puffy, realistic looking clouds. This many volumetrics at that many volumetric samples, yeah, it was hurting the render time quite a bit, but I think it was worth it because they look oh so cool. I adjusted the density of the volume on some of these to kind of give some denser clouds and some softer clouds, as you can see here. And once I had a massive landscape of clouds just spanning into the distance, things were finally starting to look pretty finished. I duplicated the whale and added another one up in the distant sky at a different angle with some more clouds, and started running out some different revisions of this scene, refining it as it went, making tweaks to the colors and the overall look of the scene and some of these different revisions. But last, I landed on this, the final result. And I was pretty happy with this. It's obviously more special because it just came out of my brain and off of my hand, and it wasn't something that was automatically generated. I think it could look kind of cool, maybe hanging on a wall or something. Oh yeah, for the final little dude in the scene, that's actually me. I used a photo scan that I did of myself in a video a few years back, and basically just dropped myself into the scene with this massive whale in the sky. I did some light compositing to the scene and a little bit of color grading, but pretty much it was the raw data right out of Blender that I just was pretty happy with here. So my scene is pretty finished here, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. And it's time to see what AI will do now with the same bit of concept art that I started off with. So let's see if there's any point in continuing to be a 3D artist. I'm just kidding. There's lots of points to be a 3D artist. But let's just see if AI is way better at this than I am. But this project was definitely educational for me, as all the projects that I do are, where I learned some new skills. Now I know a few things now that I didn't know before. Whereas when you generate something with AI, it does really nothing for yourself. So to compare what AI will create, I decided what's only fair is to use what's free and available to everyone currently, because that's the same way Blender is in the 3D creation pipeline. And I wanted to use some of the most popular services that everyone is using right now. So Gemini and ChatGPT. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people telling me what I should have used in the comment section, but we'll just see what these two different AIs can do with my sketch in image generation. So on ChatGPT, I'm just gonna feed it the sketch that I drew by adding the file here and just telling it to turn this sketch into a realistic image. Enough information that it should mimic my scene pretty well, I think, with the visual and prompt cues. So we'll just go ahead and get that going and see what it comes up with. At the same time, I've gone and got the same thing going over on Gemini. And here's the image results we got from Gemini. Well, it's a little attached to the canyon. I wonder if I can fix that.
Make the whale not attached to the canyons.
I'm afraid that the more prompts we give it, the less it's gonna be following my image here exactly though. Let's see what ChatGPT's coming up with. Oh, whoa, I don't love those clouds. It does some things pretty well. I kind of like the simplicity actually, like very interesting. This is interesting to compare. I think between the two AI algorithms here, I'm actually liking Gemini more. Gemini definitely kept like the canyon feel going better for my sketch. Doesn't really have the same sense of scale. So here I'm looking at them side by side, and it's pretty interesting. When I kind of blur my eyes though and look at both of them, I think my whale has a better sense of scale to it. I mean, this guy just looks like a chunky, oversized, smaller fish. Obviously, it's kind of silly to say because you could continue refining this with more and more prompts as well, just like I did when I created the image here. The real question is, what do you like better? I mean, this is interesting. I don't really know, like, is this taking my job away? Obviously, I have full control over this and I can do any sort of animation or changes or whatever to it. As I said in the beginning, it's not just about the finished art, because I think we can all agree that there's pros and cons to both of these. And in some ways, AI probably got it better than I did. But is it about that? I mean, do we care about this image as much as we care about this image? Because this one is made by a human with a story to tell, and this one is just copying what humans already made. It's a crazy time that we live in. I can't tell you the answer for sure. Really, it's kind of gonna be up to you guys. You guys wanna continue watching and learning how to create art like this? Or does it not really matter to you anymore? So yeah, one more time, let me know in the comments. Thanks for being on this fun little journey with me. I've had a blast with it. And I'll catch you in the next video, which is a tutorial on how to create some crazy, epic Hollywood visual effects. But that's Steve signing off for now. Peace! Woo!